Hi, I'm Kristen Key.
And I'm Darian McCluskey. Dr. Lammers was our faculty advisor for our research study, which is titled Big 5 Personality Traits of Students, Perceived Traits of Instructors, and Student-Instructor Rapport.
Here's an introduction to our study. Rapport describes a relationship that is friendly in nature. Previous literature told us that student-instructor rapport leads to positive student outcomes, such as increased class attendance and enjoyment of the class. In our study, we focused on how personality can contribute to student-instructor rapport. We use the Big 5 personality traits, which are openness to experience, conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. When establishing relationships, people like others that are similar to themselves. This can enhance one's ability to build rapport. The tendency of people to be attracted to those who are similar to themselves suggests that personality can strongly predict how one is perceived by another. The purpose of this study was to explore how student and professor personality and personality similarity predicts the level of student-instructor rapport.
The participants for our study included 60 UCA undergraduate students. Of the participants, 78% identified as women and 20% identified as men. 67% of participants identified as white, 18% identified as black, and 12% identified as Hispanic. Using the online software Qualtrics, we were able to create and administer our survey to participants of the study. The overall survey consisted of 4 distinct parts. First, a brief survey was presented to collect demographic information of the participants. Next, the participants completed a 44-item Big 5 inventory reflecting how they viewed their own personality traits. After completing the 44-item Big 5 inventory for their own personality traits, participants were asked to complete the same survey based on their perceptions of the professor they had for their second class of the week. The wording in the second Big 5 inventory survey was modified to reflect that the survey was based on how they perceived their professor's personality. Finally, the last set of survey questions was an 11-item Student-Instructor Rapport Scale to provide information about how they perceived the rapport between themselves and their professor.
In our results, we found 7 significant correlations. We used the mean personality and rapport scores. A Pearson R correlation coefficient assessed the relationship between each student Big 5 trait and rapport, each perceived professor Big 5 trait and rapport, and similarity between student and professor traits and rapport. We calculated similarity between personality traits by subtracting student scores from perceived professor scores. A low difference indicates that students and professors are more similar in that trait. A larger difference displays that they are less similar. There's a positive correlation between student agreeableness and rapport. All perceived instructor Big 5 traits significantly correlated with rapport as well. Positive correlations include openness to experience, conscientiousness, extraversion, and agreeableness. There was a negative correlation between perceived professor neuroticism and rapport. When we assessed the importance of similarity in student-instructor rapport, the only trait to correlate significantly with rapport was agreeableness.
The results of our study supported the hypothesis that the professor's personality would correlate with how the student rated their student-instructor rapport. The hypothesis that student personality would not correlate with the rating of student-instructor rapport was partially supported, with student agreeableness being the only personality trait correlating with student-instructor rapport. Finally, our research partially supported the hypothesis predicting a correlation between student-professor personality similarity and student-instructor rapport, with a perceived similarity in agreeableness correlating with student-instructor rapport. We recognize that there are limitations to our study. Most notably, it should be taken into consideration that students' perceptions of professors' personalities might not be accurate. Applications of our research results could potentially be utilized by professors when deciding on how they interact with students in an academic setting. We believe that the findings of our study could be expanded upon with more in-depth results if professors were to take the Big 5 inventory rather than students completing the survey for their professors based on how they perceive them. Thank you for taking the time to watch our presentation.